Welcome back to the Get Back. I'm Daniel, and this is going to be the breaking Jet news that happened, yesterday, uh, July 15th, reacting to it now a day later, July 16th. The Jets have really kind of had a decent offseason now as they re signed or extended two of their key players going into next season, Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner. Wilson gets a 4 year, $130 million extension for 32.5 a year with 90 million in guaranteed. And then Sauce Gardner is getting a 4 year, $120 million deal with 60 million in guaranteed. Gardner's now the highest paid cornerback in the NFL, and Wilson's one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. Not the highest, but he's up there. So initial reactions to both of these moves as a lifelong Jet fan. We'll start with the Garrett Wilson deal and move to the Sauce Gardner deal after that because the Garrett Wilson deal broke first. Um, So Garrett Wilson was signed on Tuesday, a day before Gardner got signed. So it's a $32 million deal, $90 million in fully guaranteed money. One of the highest paid fully guaranteed deals that just gave a receiver in their history in terms of guaranteed money. And look, Wilson did not have a spectacular year last year, um, mainly in part to what was going on with Aaron Rodgers and whatever. Look, I'm not gonna blame Rodgers for his bad season. I think everybody kind of had a bad season. I think you can't really pin the blame on one person. But Wilson did lead the team in receiving yards with over 1,000, 1,000, 1,100, uh, 7 touchdowns, 2 fumbles, averaging 10 yards a game. Played all 17 games. Look, Garrett Wilson has been one of the very few bright spots on the Jets. Um, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he had the greatest year and that he's the most talented receiver in the NFL, but I think he's been the most consistent part of this team for a long time. In the 3 years he's been there, close to 1,000 yards, almost, if not 1,000 yards, almost every year. Um, 14 touchdowns, over 200 catches. The guy is a very good receiver. He's a great receiver. Even he's a clear number one receiver on the Jets right now. Um, and you figured with him and Devontae Adams together, it would really be a good partnership, and it just wasn't. Um, but I think this is a contract that he really did deserve, and I think it kind of comes as a surprise because if you remember going into January and December, there was a lot of frustration and a lot of reports coming out that he might request a trade in the offseason and that he didn't. It was either him or Devontae. And the Jets, they made a decision. They picked him over Devontae Adams. And I think part of Devontae Adams didn't want to be here after Aaron Rodgers left, which is totally his decision. But I think it shows something as a Jet organization that you're able to keep a guy of this talent and extend him. And this is something the Jets don't do very often. They don't normally keep a lot of their key talent around. Either they leave in free agency or via trade, or they just don't stay that long after. Having him for the next 6 years and him being somewhat of a lifelong Jet right now is somebody we haven't had. Is really only a couple people in recent years that I can remember. I mean, the last one I remember is, Nick Mango, Darrell Revis. Even Muhammad Wilkerson didn't stay a lifelong Jet, and he wasn't that talented for that long. Quentin Williams right now is like the guy to be a lifelong Jet. He got the extension, I think it was last year. And I think what is really key is that this Jet roster needed to keep talent. It's not the most talented roster on paper. It's not the most dynamic. It's not the most, star-studded. But the very few talent that you have, you are keeping. That's a big positive. And Aaron Glenn is preaching about leadership and preaching about locker room mentality and how to, change the culture around. Keeping guys of this talent and keeping guys who want to stay Jets is a very big thing for this organization. It's something that this organization really hasn't done a lot of in recent years in terms of keeping their talent. And Garrett Wilson, while not being the most talented receiver in the NFL, is the most talented receiver on the Jets. And Could he become a top 5 receiver? Absolutely. Could he become, maybe a 2 receiver if they bring another guy? Absolutely. But it's the fact that you're keeping a guy of that talent on this team to really, really show in the locker room that these guys are committed. These guys want to be here for whatever reason. And these guys are just they want to be Jets. That's like the biggest compliment I take as a fan, that I want to be a Jet. And that's a big thing and a big ask. But if you look at it from objectively and you take the Jet fan out of me, I think it's a good move. I think it's a fantastic move. I think the price is somewhat fair. Um, Maybe it's a little bit of an overpay. $32 million is a lot of money, but the consistency that he's given and he's delivered will only be more valuable towards the middle parts of the contract. He's still super young as well. I think he's 25 right now, 24. He's super young. So having him for 6 years is perfectly. Uh, you still have him for most of his prime, and you could just figure he could get better. So I do really think that the consistency is what warrants the payday, and the hope on the future that he will continue to get better and be consistent. Garrett's been a really, really great receiver. He's a good route runner. He can catch balls that really nobody else can on this team. Um, and he's exuberant. He's been vocal, but he's been a leader. You see it on the side sometimes. He'll get frustrated with that. I think it's more out of a care to win than it is frustration in the team. So I think he can grow into more of a leadership role. Um, and yeah, I think it's a very, very good contract, especially with the receiver market nowadays and what guys are expecting. I think it's a bit. Yeah, I think it's fair. I do think it maybe could have went down a little bit, but that's just me. But I do think for the market that it is and what he's done and what he's proven and what he should be able to do, it's a good contract. Um, I think the big thing is just the Jets are keeping their talent and they're keeping a player like Garrett Wilson who's been so important for them and so impactful for them on the field that it's a good sign as an organization that this is what healthy organizations do, right? They keep their own. They don't, they redraft and they develop, but when you have a talent like this, you keep them for as long as possible. And I think that's what the Jets did right here with Garrett Wilson. So really, really happy about the signing. Really, really, I really love that it got done. He's been boasting about it. He's been talking about it recently. So happy it got done. Happy they gave him the extension. Happy they are getting it out of the way before training camp. That's a big thing too. So overall, good stuff all around from everybody involved. Everybody kind of wins the situation. The Jets keep one of their main receivers and the main receiver on their team. Garrett gets his payday. The agent gets happy. The organization is happy. Good stuff all around. The Jets did something right in this offseason. So that was Tuesday. And now we're going to move on to Wednesday, where I was going to make the Garrett Wilson video, and then we had the Sauce Gardner news that broke around like 2, 3 o'clock. This is July 15th. Sauce Gardner signs a 4-year, $120 million extension with, I believe, $60 million guaranteed. Yeah, $60 million guaranteed. It is Sauce Gardner is now the highest paid cornerback in the league right now, making $30 million a year, or give or take a couple of nickels and dimes here. So I have two ways I'm gonna look at this, right? Because I think objectively there are two ways that you can look at this. Sauce Gardner had a fantastic year last year, or 2 years ago, his rookie year. He was arguably one of the best young defenders in the NFL. He had one of some great interceptions, good tackles, smart movements. He had DJ Reed next to him, who was helping him a lot. But he established himself as the number one corner on this team. Last year, he did not have as good of a year that he had in his first year. 13 assisted tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception, a lot of missed tackles as well, and that are not listed. 38 solo tackles. It was not. He wasn't the best player on the Jets last year, and he wasn't the best corner on the Jets last year. And I think what you're seeing is with this contract extension, right? You're seeing two things. The Jets are willing to believe in him. They're willing to believe that last year was just everyone had a bad year. It was a bad year. We're throwing that year out the window. Okay? It's a fresh start for everybody. And if we're going for a fresh start, we've seen your rookie year and we've seen how good you can be and how good you were. And we believe you can find that form again with Aaron Glenn in this new defensive scheme, this new Jet mentality. And I think everything I said about Garrett Wilson, you can transfer over to Sauce Gardner as well, keeping their young player, keeping their talent, building that culture of people wanting to play for the Jets and wanting to be here and establishing locker room leadership right away and consistent leadership right away, keeping around similar faces. I think that's an important part of it. And keeping Sauce for that amount of time for the next 6 years is important, right? And Sauce has been vocal saying he wanted to be a Jet for life. He wants to stay in New York for life. For whatever reason, he loves this franchise. I don't know why, but he wants to be a Jet for life, and they've given him the extension that he's been saying about a lot online. So yeah, I think in that aspect, I can understand it. In that aspect, I like it, and I'm saying this right now. I like Sauce Gardner as a player. I love Sauce Gardner as a player. I think he's an important piece of this defense, and I think he could be a real X factor going into next year. However, there is a but here. It's $30 million. To me, based on his performance last year, it's a bit of an overpay, and I think it's a major overpay. I would have had it at maybe 22 to 25 million. I would have given him if I'm giving him an extension, right? Maybe less. You know my take on it. It's in a video we recorded last month, I believe, where we talked about this possibly happening, and I had some pretty hot takes about it. But I think my takes still stay the same. I think 30 million is a lot of money to pay Sauce Gardner right now. And I think the reason why I say that is because I'm looking at the year last year, and I'm looking at how of an absolute, for lack of a better term, disaster it was. And he was not good. Like, he just was not a good cornerback last year. And it's hard to predict what you're going to see in the future. It's different from Garrett Wilson because Garrett Wilson has given you consistency. He's given you 1,000-yard seasons. He's given you 100 catches every year, or he's given you 7 to 6 touchdowns every year. That's consistency that you've seen happen every year. Sauce had a fantastic rookie year and a terrible second year. I don't know where the consistency is. And so you're banking on a prediction that is based on, well, we'll see. And you're hoping that you'll get the rookie Sauce Gardner than last year's Sauce Gardner. And I think if you're committing 30 million on a prediction, I'm not that comfortable saying it's a good deal yet. I think it can go in one and two directions. I think direction one, he does find his form again. He becomes the rookie Sauce Gardner that we saw, the lockdown #1 cornerback. I think that is entirely possible, and I think it's what the Jets are going to bank on, that they could be able to fix his mistakes, and they're able to bring Sauce Gardner back from where he was last year. And the $30 million contract seems worth it, and it could even be a bargain, right? Or you have the Sauce Gardner of last year, which was not good. You have consistent of a lack of form and the inconsistency at cornerback and the missed tackles and the lack of interceptions, right? You get that Sauce Gardner and his contract's an overpay. I'm not saying that Sauce Gardner is going to have a bad year. I'm not believing that Sauce Gardner is going to have a bad year. But I think that we have to accept that there is a possibility of that happening, as well as a possibility of him having a great year. And I, as a Jet fan, and objectively my opinion, is that if you're basing it on a prediction, $30 million is a lot to pay somebody who is a bit unproven. I'm not saying that he's not unproven, but he's a little bit unproven. A little bit. I would have waited for the end of the year to see the season that he had And look, if he has a great year this year, I'll hold my hands up and say the contract was worth it. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't. And I think I want to believe in Sauce Gardner. I do. And I am going to believe in Sauce Gardner. And I am going to believe that the Jets can fix his mistakes he had last year. I'm going to believe that the Jets are going to be able to fix, his lack of production, and that he's going to be better in coverage, he's going to make better tackles, and he's going to get more interceptions. I firmly believe that. I think as a fan and as a commentator right now, it's a bit of an overpay for somebody who's a bit unproven. That's all I'm saying. I'm not bashing Sauce Gardner. I'm not bashing his play. I'm slightly bashing the contract. Okay? I think objectively this is a good deal for the Jets because again you keep your young talent. And from that standpoint, I love it. I love that he signed. I love that he's still here. And I love that he is a decent talent right now. Am I ready to say he's the number one cornerback on this team? Right now, you have to, but is he a top 5 corner in this league? Probably not. Not based on last year. Could he be? Yes, absolutely. But right now, I don't see him as that. He has to prove it to me, and I have to see it on the field that he is back to his rookie year self, that he is a top 5 corner in this league. Based on that, I think it's a lot of money to commit to a guy. I do. So I think in that regard, the negative right now, the pros and cons are kind of 50-50, and that's why I'm iffy. The pros and cons are what they are. There's a lot of good that can happen, there's a lot of bad that can happen. And you're committing a lot to something that's such an unknown right now. But I think aside from the negative, the positive is that he's signed. The Jets are keeping their talent, they're keeping their guys, they're keeping everything they need to establish a good locker room and establish a good culture. These are moves that really good teams make that help them in the future. Now, could Sauce Gardner, maybe could they draft another cornerback? Could they go out and get another cornerback to give him some help? Absolutely. That's why I don't think the deal is a total bust. But I think, again, if you're committing $30 million to a cornerback who you believe is at best a 2, it's a lot. So a lot. This now rides on Sauce Gardner's shoulders. He was basically, begging for this extension, begging to stay in New York, wanting to be a Jet for life, and now he has to go out and prove that he is worth this money. The Jets and Aaron Glenn are committing to Sauce. They're committing to their pick, and they're committing to the talent that he is, that he can rise to the level of his contract and beyond it. So I like to see that commitment. I like to see that ability and that praise. But again, as a fan and as an objective commentator, I need to see it from him. And while you're committing something is a good thing, if it doesn't pan out, then it's a bust. It's a flat out bust. So to wrap up everything, I like the Garrett Wilson contract. I think it's great move, great deal by the Jets, great job by all parties involved. The Sauce Gardner contract, I think, is a bit of an overpay, but could turn into a fantastic deal if he finds his rookie of the year form again, and if he could rise to that level that we saw him being at, because it can easily go the other direction as well. So I think it's a bit of an overpay from the Sauce Gardner contract, but I am happy that he re-signed and extended and is going to be a part of this team for a while. I do not believe Sauce Gardner is a bad cornerback. I don't think at worst he'll be a 2. At worst. And that's perfectly fine. That's a great player right there. So we'll see how it pans out next year, but the Jets so far are off to a pretty good start to their training camp, getting 2 big players extensions right out of the way before it even begins. No drama, nothing. New York media has nothing to talk about now when we get to training camp. So good for them. They banged it out and they ironed out all the kinks and they got it done right away, right after each other too. So really good job by everybody in the Jets involved. Good job by the agents. Good job by the players. Good job by getting all this sorted and done before we start training camp. So overall, I'm relatively happy. as a Jet fan, I'm relatively pleased that everything got done, and I'm pleased that two of our key guys and two of our big factors going to next year's success are here and are going to be here for a while as we start to establish a winning culture, which is what Aaron Glenn wants. So overall, good job everybody involved. Thank you guys for listening and watching. Thank you guys for sticking around. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out our other video, check out our socials, all that goodness. I've been Daniel. This is a Get Back, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace. All right, Lewis. You go.